The phone rang. It was late past midnight. Cindy James had just finished brushing her teeth. She wore her robe, slippers on her feet, hair pulled back. She was alone in her modest Vancouver home. The night was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. She froze when the phone rang. Slowly, she picked it up. Hello. No answer. Just silence. She waited, then breathing. Heavy. Slow. And then a whisper. Hello, Cindy. Her blood ran cold. She slammed the phone down, stared at it. Her hands trembled. That was the moment it began. A 7-year descent into terror. A game of cat and mouse. A torment so twisted it would end with her bound, drugged, strangled, and dead. But the most haunting part? To this day, no one knows if Cindy James was murdered or if she was the architect of her own nightmare. At the time, Cindy was 37, a nurse, kind, soft-spoken, dedicated to her work with troubled children. Recently divorced from her husband, a respected psychiatrist named Dr. Roy Makepeace. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't famous. She wasn't controversial. She was ordinary. And that's what makes this story terrifying. Because if this could happen to Cindy, it could happen to anyone. The first calls came in 1982. Short, strange, harmless at first. She told herself it was nothing. A prank, maybe some kids. But as the weeks passed, the calls grew darker. You'll die soon, Cindy. You can't hide. Sometimes the caller didn't even speak, just breathed, as if listening to her panic through the receiver. And then, the notes began to appear. Scribbled threats, cut out letters pasted like ransom notes, left under her windshield wiper, taped to her front door. One read, "Soon, Cindy." Another, "You won't survive." The handwriting was shaky, jagged. The words simple, but devastating. The story of Cindy James is not just about death. It's about fear. The kind of fear that isolates, that consumes, that kills one way or another. And maybe that's the real horror. Because sometimes the scariest killer isn't a stranger in the night. Sometimes it's your own mind. Cindy was desperate. She hired private investigators, including one named Ozzie Cabin. One night, Ozzie arrived to find Cindy half-conscious, with stockings tied tightly around her. She was shaking, incoherent. Ozzie was convinced someone had attacked her. He swore she couldn't have done it to herself. But the police? They weren't so sure. As the years dragged on, the officers began to believe a different story. Maybe Cindy was staging it all. Maybe she was tying herself up, leaving herself unconscious, writing her own threatening notes. But why? Was it attention-seeking, a mental breakdown, or something else entirely? The police leaned toward that theory. Her family leaned the other way. And Cindy? Cindy grew more and more certain that the end was coming. By 1989, Cindy was exhausted. She had moved houses, changed her phone number, even changed her last name. She installed security lights, carried a panic button, avoided being alone. But the calls still came. The notes still arrived. The stockings still appeared. And Cindy's fear became prophecy. She told her friends, her family, her investigators, anyone who would listen, "They're going to kill me. And when they do, no one will believe it wasn't suicide." Those words would become her legacy. Because in May 1989, Cindy James disappeared. And when she was finally found, it was too late. It was May 25th, 1989. Cindy James had plans. She was supposed to meet friends for dinner. She dressed neatly, left her home, and drove her small car. But she never arrived. Hours passed. Her friends grew worried. They called her home phone. No answer. They checked her driveway. Her car was gone. By midnight, panic spread. Cindy James had vanished. 2 weeks later, on June 8th, her car was discovered in a neighborhood parking lot. The scene was strange. Inside the car were groceries, still bagged, untouched. A carton of milk, bread, and other food items, left as though she had just stepped out for a moment. On the car roof sat a wrap of cash, $200, neatly placed, and scattered across the ground near the vehicle blood. Cindy's blood. But Cindy herself was gone. It was as if she had walked away into thin air. The search for Cindy consumed Vancouver. Police combed through wooded areas. Flyers were posted. Friends and family gave interviews, begging for her safe return. The city whispered. Was Cindy abducted? Murdered? Or was this another chapter in a drama of her own making? Then, the smell. A man walking his dog near an abandoned house caught the scent first. Foul, sour, heavy with decay. He followed it. And there, lying in the tall grass behind the house, was Cindy James, dead. Her body told a horrifying story. Cindy lay on the ground, fully clothed, shoes still on, her body stiff from decomposition. Tied around her neck was a black nylon stocking, her tormentor's signature. Her wrists and ankles were bound. But here's where it gets stranger. The knots weren't tight. They were intricate, but not impossible to tie on oneself. An autopsy revealed something chilling. Cindy had multiple drug overdoses in her system. Morphine, flurazepam, other sedatives. Enough to kill. Yet there were no needle marks on her arms. No evidence of forced injection. The drugs had been swallowed. The conclusion? Cindy had taken them herself. But then, how could she have tied herself up so neatly? How could she have strangled herself with a stocking? Was it possible? Technically, yes. But was it likely? That was the question that would haunt investigators for decades. The coroner's report struggled with the truth. Option 1. Cindy overdosed, tied herself up, and lay down to die. A bizarre form of suicide. Option 2. She was forcibly drugged, bound, and murdered, staged to look like suicide. Both options had problems. If it was suicide, why bind herself? Why strangle herself? Why leave groceries and money in her car? If it was murder, what was the evidence? No fingerprints. No signs of struggle. No witness ever saw her taken. The official verdict was maddeningly vague. Death by an unknown event. Neither ruled suicide, nor confirmed homicide. Her family was outraged. Her friends broken. And the police split down the middle. From here, the story fractured into theories. Theory 1. Cindy staged it all. The threatening calls, the notes, the bindings, even her death. A product of mental illness, attention-seeking, or a desperate cry for help that went too far. Theory 2. Cindy was murdered. A relentless stalker, never caught, finally finished the job and covered their tracks so well that Cindy's warnings came true. No one would believe her. Theory 3. A mix of both. Perhaps Cindy staged some incidents, but the danger was also real. A spiral of fear, paranoia, and genuine threat that ended in tragedy. But the most disturbing theory pointed at someone very close. Dr. Roy Makepeace, Cindy's ex-husband, a respected psychiatrist. On the surface, their divorce was amicable, but friends whispered otherwise. They described Cindy as controlled, manipulated, that she feared him more than she admitted. And then there was a recording. Roy once played a threatening voicemail he claimed to have received. The voice was low, distorted, menacing. But investigators later wondered, was that Cindy disguising her own voice? Or was it Roy, staging a call to deflect suspicion? He denied involvement until his death. But suspicion clung to him forever. Because Cindy's prophecy echoed in everyone's mind. They're going to kill me. And when they do, no one will believe it wasn't suicide. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. The Vancouver police grew weary of the case long before Cindy's death. They had spent years investigating her claims. Hundreds of reports. Countless hours. And what do they have? Nothing. No suspect ever caught. No fingerprints. No recordings of threatening calls that could be traced. Each time Cindy was attacked, no one saw a thing. No intruder was found. No break-in evidence. To the police, it began to look like a hoax. One officer was blunt. We think she did it to herself. That official stance shaped the entire case. When she died, many investigators didn't see murder. They saw confirmation bias. But what if the stalker was just that good? What if Cindy's tormentor knew exactly how to leave no trace, how to slip away, how to erase evidence? What if the police simply weren't looking hard enough? To understand Cindy's story, we must ask, what was happening in her mind? Some psychologists argued she suffered from split personality disorder or some form of psychosis, that she truly believed she was being hunted, even as she staged events herself. Others disagreed. They said Cindy's fear was too consistent, too specific, that her intelligence, her career, Her careful planning didn't fit the profile of someone fabricating years of torment. Her journals only deepened the mystery. She wrote of the terror, the calls, the footsteps outside her window, the certainty of death, not the words of someone seeking attention, but the desperate notes of a woman trapped in a nightmare. And the final journal entry, just weeks before her death, was chillingly simple. "I'm afraid." When Cindy's story hit the news, the public was divided. Some saw her as a tragic victim, ignored by police, hunted by a phantom, murdered in cold blood. Others saw her as a troubled woman, fabricating drama, staging terror, until it spiraled out of control. Radio hosts debated it. Newspapers ran headlines. True crime enthusiasts dissected every detail. Her name became a cautionary tale. The woman who cried wolf, or the woman who was devoured by wolves no one else could see. And somewhere, in the middle of those debates, lay the truth. Cindy James was buried quietly, mourned by her family, her friends, her co-workers. But her case refused to rest. Every few years, documentaries revived it. Podcasts analyzed it. Detectives revisited the files. And each time, the same conclusion emerged. We don't know. We don't know if Cindy James killed herself. We don't know if Cindy James was murdered. We don't know if her tormentor was real or born from her own mind. But we do know this. Cindy predicted her end with chilling accuracy. They're going to kill me. And when they do, no one will believe it wasn't suicide. And in death, she was silenced. Her voice, her truth, buried with her. When Cindy's story hit the news, the public was divided. Some saw her as a tragic victim, ignored by police, hunted by a phantom, murdered in cold blood. Others saw her as a troubled woman, fabricating drama, staging terror, until it spiraled out of control. Radio hosts debated it. Newspapers ran headlines. True crime enthusiasts dissected every detail. Her name became a cautionary tale. The woman who cried wolf, or the woman who was devoured by wolves no one else could see. And somewhere, in the middle of those debates, lay the truth. Cindy James was buried quietly, mourned by her family, her friends, her co-workers. But her case refused to rest. Every few years, documentaries revived it. Podcasts analyzed it. Detectives revisited the files. And each time, the same conclusion emerged. We don't know. We don't know if Cindy James killed herself. We don't know if Cindy James was murdered. We don't know if her tormentor was real or born from her own mind. But we do know this. Cindy predicted her end with chilling accuracy. They're going to kill me. And when they do, no one will believe it wasn't suicide. And in death, she was silenced. Her voice, her truth, buried with her. Close your eyes. Imagine Cindy James, the last time she was seen alive. A woman in her late 40s. Blonde hair pulled back, carrying groceries to her car, looking over her shoulder as though someone might be following. She climbs in, shuts the door. She drives away. Hours later, her car is found. Groceries still fresh. Money on the roof. Blood on the ground. And days later, her body tied, strangled, decomposing in the grass. A stocking around her neck. Drugs in her veins. A puzzle no one can solve. A story that lingers, unsettled, haunting. Was Cindy James murdered by an unknown stalker? Or did Cindy James murder herself in the most elaborate, tragic way imaginable? We may never know, but one thing is certain. The story of Cindy James is not just about death. It's about fear. The kind of fear that isolates, that consumes, that kills one way or another. And maybe that's the real horror. Because sometimes the scariest killer isn't a stranger in the night. Sometimes it's your own mind.